Greetings to you, my friend. Are you ready for another batch of horror stories? Then let's get started. These are real stories taken from open sources. The names have been changed, but their frightening essence is conveyed exactly. Story 1. The Girl Who Learned to Hide. I don't remember a single moment during my school years when I wasn't being targeted by someone. That streak finally ended in college, but by then, the damage was already done. Was I stronger because of it? Perhaps. But I would trade all that strength for just one chance at a normal school experience. I lived in a regular town, big enough that not everyone knew each other, but I was unlucky. My main bullies were 3 of the meanest girls in the world, and they followed me throughout my formative years. They didn't officially start until 3rd grade. I already knew what being picked on felt like, mostly from boys who were just afraid of girl cooties. But in 3rd grade, my real nightmare began. 3 girls, let's call them Janice, Emma, and Gaia, noticed I liked to draw during recess instead of running around. On that first day, they took one of my drawings, threw it in the trash, and poured juice on it. I remember crying like a baby. It wasn't hard to make me cry back then, and that was exactly what they wanted. The more I reacted, the more they pushed. They were scolded and separated from me temporarily, but little mean girls are tough to deter. For years, I wished I was a boy. I saw how boys bullied others. It was mostly physical, quick, and resolved. Girl bullying was sneakier, more horrible, and psychological. Once they noticed they could make me cry over almost anything, I became their easiest target. I remember everything: poking me in class with sharp objects, sending notes with awful insults that picked at my young self-esteem. When you're 9 years old and read the words, "You're so ugly, all the boys will forever hate you," it truly affects you. I broke down each time. As soon as I started bawling, they started laughing. Even my teachers got annoyed. At first, they stopped them, but eventually, they started rolling their eyes and continued class, ignoring me. I guess disrupting lesson plans every day was easier than sending kids to the principal. It took around 2 years to build enough psychological tolerance to not cry like a baby every time. But I was still tearing up, and that spurred them on. Things only got worse as we grew up. Everything seemingly wrong that you can have as a teenager happened to me. Braces, bad posture, acne, frizzy hair, and even a little mustache. My parents got me braces, but my mother didn't think hair removal was necessary. She said acne and hair are parts of puberty. PSA. Please don't believe that. If your kids want to get their mustache waxed, just let them. Maybe my life would have been better if my mum actually listened. Anyway, I had to get used to Janice, Emma, and Gaia's taunts through my most vulnerable times. Once, someone gave me chocolates at recess. I was still figuring out my braces and thought I had eaten everything cleanly. I hadn't. That was the plan all along. They got a popular boy named Julian to ask if I liked the chocolates. I smiled my chocolate-covered bracy smile at him, and everyone started laughing, him included. This was when phones with cameras were coming out. They took pictures. I was mortified. I cried silently, as I had learned to do, and cleaned my mouth when the bell rang. It wasn't until high school that their attitude changed slightly. I had learned not to cry at all. The ridicule was still terrible, and the school staff's negligence tore me up. But I finally controlled my tears. I learned bullies can smell fear. When I stopped crying, they stopped caring. I was known as the loner, a weirdo girl who was always drawing, but no one messed with me. High school presented other things for everyone. The girls developed interests like cheerleading and Model UN. I had art club. I fit in there somehow, and that made me bolder. Whenever they remembered me, I simply ignored them. That worked until I got a group project with a guy Gaia was interested in. I didn't pick him. The teacher assigned us. We worked at the library after hours, and Gaia saw us. The next day, those girls were on me like they hadn't been in years. They followed me into the girls' bathroom, closed the door, and pushed me into a stall. I couldn't grey rock them with this level of aggression. I fell back on a toilet and hit my back on the pipe badly. While I was recovering from the pain, Gaia hit me square in the face with a big algebra book. I yelled at them, trying to feel if she had broken my nose. Gaia grabbed my hair, asking what I was doing with Tony. I told her through harsh breaths it was a school project. Gaia let go, and right on cue came the worst sound in the world, their laughter. Almost mechanically, I started crying. Not just from the pain, but automatically. I was a little girl again. They kept laughing, saying Tony could never like a girl like me. Gaia smirked, saying it didn't matter because I needed to be taught a lesson. Janice got close to my face and added, "You thought we forgot about you? We didn't. We just have better things to do. Next time you get close to one of our guys, this will be much worse." I was sobbing. Finally, a teacher opened the door. Emma lied, saying they found me crying and wanted to help. The girls left. The teacher tried to ask what was wrong, but I just kept crying. My mother picked me up and gave me a lecture about getting a call from the school. I wailed that I was bullied and no one cared. I got grounded. My mum wasn't mean, but she couldn't understand. According to her, she was popular. I went to school the next day with actual bruises that no one asked about. I begged the teacher to let me do the project alone. She did. I avoided all boys from then on. The rest started a rumor about me being a lesbian, and you can guess how I was bullied about that. But ignoring everyone became my thing. They had broken me. You're probably waiting for some revenge. I didn't get one. There's a silver lining, though. At 18, I left my house for college. I found friends, still introverted, and finally shaved wherever I wanted. I dare say I became pretty to myself, which was a big accomplishment. As for Janice, Gaia, and Emma, I think they're living good lives. That's not what most people like to hear, but that's real life. Maybe karma will get them one day, but maybe not. New here? Welcome. Been here before. Thanks for sticking around. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. That way, you'll always be the first to catch our daily stories. And hey, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what topics you'd like us to cover next. Your voice matters. Thank you. Story 2. Not when I was a little kid. I had a best friend, and his name was Paul. For a while, it was awesome. I didn't have the best time at home. My parents were very strict. I understand they were trying to raise me well, but my father's military career made it hard for me to be who I was. My mum just followed his lead. So I often felt like I was alone in the world, until I found Paul. With a military dad, we moved around a lot. I didn't have the chance to make many friends. Paul was my neighbor. It was like he took me under his wing, and we became best friends almost immediately. I thought he was pretty cool too. He had a lot of freedom at home, His parents let him go out wherever, whenever, even though we were like 14, fresh out of elementary school. He introduced me to a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have been watching. But I was growing up and interested. My parents would have killed me if they knew. I felt freer thanks to him, which is why I didn't notice for some time that things weren't so normal with Paul. At school, we sat at the same spot every day and hung out with the same people. Paul's friends. He was sort of a leader to them too. The first time I noticed something off was the day after we had a little project in class. I met this cool guy from the chess club who liked a bunch of music and movies that I had no idea about. I was a very curious kid, so I just kept talking to him. We went together to the cafeteria during our free period and kept talking about his taste in music. I was pretty riveted. Paul must have entered the cafeteria without me noticing. Out of nowhere, I felt this pull on my shirt and turned to see his very angry face. He asked what the hell I was doing sitting there with that loser. I didn't know what to say. My new friend was shocked and a little scared. I had no idea what to do, so I let Paul drag me back to our regular table. Nothing else was mentioned for the entire free period. But I wasn't an idiot. When we were alone at school, I asked him why he did that. Paul managed to convince me that I had to watch out with whom I spent some time. I couldn't be seen with some loser kids from the chess club. Paul said that if I wanted to be a loser too, then he wouldn't be my friend anymore. That was very terrifying at that age. I couldn't conceive of not having Paul and his friends after years of not having anyone to rely on. So I agreed and stopped talking to that guy. And the next incident happened a few weeks later. Paul invited me over for some TV and games. There were 2 girls there. I knew them from school, but this was the first time I hung out with girls in such a private setting. I asked what we were watching, and Paul made us look at this adult stuff on his TV. I don't know if the girls were comfortable with that, but they didn't seem to say a word. At one point, Paul called me to the kitchen. He said he was going to his room to make out with one of the girls. I told him fine, but I was tired and wanted to leave. He got this angry look again and told me that I wasn't leaving. I was staying and making out with that other girl. I said I didn't want to. Yes, I was 14 with raging hormones, but I didn't want a session with some random girl. That night, that Paul said that I had to go and kiss her right then, with him watching. Otherwise, I could go home and just never talk to him again. All of this just felt so unfair. But that threat again was enough to just get me moving. The girl seemed to be into it, or maybe she was just trying to fit in like I was. But we did kiss. It was my first kiss, but nothing like I imagined or wanted. I definitely wouldn't have picked for Paul to be there, commanding this entire thing. I kept kissing her until Paul left for the other room with the other girl. Then I pulled away and told the girl that I was leaving. She said that she wanted to leave too. She and I actually never talked again. But Paul told all the guys in our friend group about it and made me out to be some sort of hero. I didn't like that, but at least he was happy. I guess we were still friends. Little things like that continued to happen, but at some point, Paul stopped threatening me with his friendship, and he actually started hitting me instead. It was small in the beginning, like a nudge on the shoulder that hurt a little too much for comfort. It wasn't very friendly. He hit me in the back of the head when I wouldn't move fast enough for his liking. My shins also took some kicks from him, and the things that he was asking for, like sneaking a bottle of vodka out of a store, got worse and worse. I don't want to paint my teen self as the most innocent person in the world. I knew I was doing something wrong, and I still did it. It's hard to even remember what it was like or why I felt compelled to do what he wanted. Yes, he hit me, but it was like a trance that you can't get out of. I once pulled a girl's skirt right off of her in the middle of the quad because Paul asked me to. Actually, I did that completely hoping that I would get in trouble, that the school would call my parents. If my dad had found out about it, he would have forbidden me from ever going out until I turned 18 and left his house. I wanted to get in trouble. I didn't think that there was another way to get away from Paul. But I didn't actually get in trouble. No teacher had seen it. When I asked about it, Paul told me that he talked to the girl. He said, "You know, I got your back, right? As long as you and I are a team, nothing will ever stop us." I smiled, but I just wasn't happy about it. Paul's demands and his requests increased. I swear that I tried to refuse, but he was full on hitting me by that point. Those were times when no one else was around. One night, Paul told me that we were going to steal a car. We could go joyriding. I said no. Full stop. We were 15 then. I knew that he would want me to drive, and if caught, I would be the one to get in trouble. I was tired of his tyrannical ways. Paul started hitting me as always, goading me, hurting my shins. I still wouldn't do it. He got angrier and angrier until all of that rage just exploded. Some serious meltdown, but also a beatdown from him to me. In the moment, I tried to protect myself from the blows, but it wasn't easy. Something had been unleashed. It wasn't until some guys in some truck parked nearby yelled at us that he stopped and fled. I was fine, mostly just kind of bruised up. I managed to go home and to school the next morning without being seen by my parents, but the teachers and others noticed it on my face. The staff thought that I was being hurt at home. My homeroom teacher took me to the principal. I just followed along because I didn't want to see Paul. I only saw him from my side eye with his arms crossed as I walked into the principal's office. But I just kept walking. The school called my parents. I still smile remembering how that principal, Mr. Perez, and the school counselor faced my intimidating father. They said that they would call CPS and the police to have him arrested. My mother started crying, and that was when I told them the truth. I just broke down, telling them how I had felt about being Paul's friend, the subject of his bullying. The meeting wrapped up, and I was sent home for the day. I anticipated getting scolded by my father, but seeing me crying like that affected my dad. He talked to me alone in my room and listened without his usual attitude. I had never felt a real connection to him until that point. He comforted me in his detached way and told me that I didn't have to worry about Paul again. We were moving again for his new posting. I swear I had never felt so good about that news. I didn't say goodbye to a single person at school. And I guess I'll just do it here now, even if years have passed by. Goodbye, Paul. I hope to never see you again. A little reminder. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Story 3. Doing nothing against bullying is almost worse than the act itself. That's what I tell myself now. For years, I rationalized it. I told myself I hadn't done anything to this boy directly. I even forgot about him for a while. But the truth is, it's been killing me. I need to know how much I should blame myself. Bullying is normalized in our society. Often, when the victim fights back, he's the one who gets in trouble. But Andy didn't fight back at all. Imagine the typical scenario from a movie. A scrawny freshman boy gets tormented by the senior jocks. I was a senior then. It's a cliche for a reason because it happens often. In the locker rooms, in the hallways, and in class, Andy was teased relentlessly. He was beaten whenever he couldn't get out of school quicker than the seniors. No one batted an eye. Even when he literally came to school the next day with bruises and black eyes, we laughed. I think there was only one teacher who tried to do something, but I can't be sure. I think I saw her being lectured by one of the coaches once. Nothing ever came of it. Everyone continued to let it happen. I think even Andy's parents didn't care. My mum would have raised hell if the same thing happened to me. Looking back, I wouldn't have blamed him for snapping. But he didn't. The worst of the bullying happened after the final pep rally for the football team in our senior year. I don't know why Andy attended that rally. It was literally an event to celebrate his biggest tormentors. I'm ashamed to say that I considered them my friends then. I guess that's another clue that Andy's life at home wasn't that great. Maybe he didn't have anything else to do, so he just stayed as long as possible. But he shouldn't have. The pep rally came and went. When everyone left, most of the senior class returned to the school for this big secret party. We weren't exactly in a small town, but partying anywhere else with booze wouldn't have been easy. School was our only option. We drank way too much, but I stopped before I could get too drunk. I was also more preoccupied with a girl. But during a break, one of the guys, Carlson, pulled me toward the rest of the team. We started talking about the senior prank. It had to be epic. The upperclassmen in our school were famous for pulling fun but smart stuff that never got them in trouble. These guys were suggesting things that could get us arrested. I told them not to be idiots. We couldn't jeopardize the final game of the season or our graduation. No stealing the final test, no destroying the principal's car. I had to remind them several times that the idea was for it to be fun and smart, not to get us expelled. They laughed but saw the wisdom of my words. But then our friend Walter arrived. He was the biggest bully on the team, in the entire senior class. He was huge, had rich parents, and influence. Basically untouchable in my mind. We had all assumed that Walter had sneaked off with a girl, but he came back dragging Andy with him. He started saying things like, "Look what I found." Everyone was jeering, even me. I knew something bad was going to happen, but I still just laughed like some hyena when I saw that little kid. Walter said that he had an idea for the senior prank, and it was all going to be focused on Andy. I kind of stopped laughing then. I tried to tell them that doing anything to Andy couldn't really be the senior prank. But with Walter being there, all the others just stopped listening to me. Richie, the mascot, grabbed the costume. He said, "Let's dress him up." Walter loved this idea. Everyone cheered as we forced that little kid into a big lion costume. Walter made him crawl on all fours and roar while the rest of us just watched. Then we started throwing beer at the costume. It was pretty degrading. Walter kept yelling for him to growl, and we all shouted it too. After a while, I noticed that the girls had gotten bored, and most of them left. Parties without girls really don't make any sense in my mind. So I told the guys it was probably time to leave too. That's when they noticed the girl's absence. Carlson told Walter everyone was leaving, but Walter stopped us. He said, "No, we have to finish our senior prank." I asked him what more he would want. He played with the kid all year and pretty much all night. Basically, he told us to follow. He dragged Andy, who was still in that lion costume, to the shower locker room. I followed along with Carlson, Richie, and two other guys, so not everyone witnessed what happened. Walter grabbed some rope from I don't even know where and tied Andy to one of the showers. We had this system where the pipes were in the middle of the shower area like columns, so it was easy to tie them up. Then Walter turned on the water. Richie complained because he would get the blame if the costume was completely ruined. I was pretty uncomfortable in that moment too, but Walter didn't listen. He soaked the kid, who remained motionless. I shiver right now thinking about it back then because it felt like he was more than just tied to the shower. Andy was defeated. He was resigned to Walter's bullying. This kid was just completely gone. I remember Richie finally said something like, "That's it. I'm done. If anyone asks about this, I'm putting the blame on you, Walter." Walter hurled some insult at him and just kept going. Carlson was also worried, telling him to stop and just untie him. But Walter was in some frenzy. Honestly, I don't think there was any stopping him. He shut the water off, and I thought, finally. But then he unzips his pants. That was it for me. I asked him what the hell he thought he was doing, but it was too late. He started humiliating the kid in ways I can't even speak out loud, and he was laughing, telling us to join in. I looked at Carlson, and we just shook our heads at how sick all of this was getting. I left then, not caring what else happened. All I knew was that I didn't want to see it. I got home pretty tired that night and just sat in bed, thinking how relieved I was that graduation was finally coming. I could just get far away from all of this. The pep rally actually took place on a Friday. When I arrived at school that Monday, there was some commotion. I just knew that it probably had to do with Andy. I even expected the police to be there. But the commotion was just a bunch of students outside the shower locker room. Then I saw a few male teachers carrying Andy out. It was Monday. That kid had been tied to the shower since Friday. No one noticed. They apparently took him to the hospital. I swear I was trembling, waiting for something big to happen. I saw my whole future just burning to ashes right in front of my face. But nothing happened. The rest of the day just went on. Too normal, I thought. I didn't see that kid again. The guys and I kind of came to an understanding. We would never talk about it. Sure, and that made sense. But we also pulled a bit away from Walter. That wasn't an understanding. It was just common sense. I believe something had escaped us before. Walter knew about it. After our last gym class, he laughed and patted our backs, saying everything was fine. He said his dad would make sure that this didn't go any further. Richie asked him what he meant by that. Apparently, Walter's dad had called the school at Walter's request, telling them that they needed to resolve this issue internally without the police. If they didn't, they made some abstract threat that the teachers would get blamed and not us. At that time, I didn't like this mention of us. The rest of us hadn't really done anything. But I realized now that we were to blame too. Still, I was relieved. I'm not sorry about that. I got dressed quickly and didn't go out to any more parties, not even after graduation. I left that town for college and put the idea of Andy and Walter just off my mind. But I graduated and moved back to start a business later. That's when I heard more about what happened to poor Andy. You see, he spent the entire week tied to that shower because his parents were away on some business. But also, as I suspected, they didn't really care about him at all. Andy couldn't change schools, so he continued going after recovering silently from that torment. The next few years without Walter were apparently okay for him, but I wouldn't have been fine after that night. He apparently saw a therapist and was now on some depression meds. I was thinking about seeing the kid. Apologizing obviously wasn't enough, but maybe it would help. Except then I saw Richie the other day. He told me that Andy had taken his life a year after he graduated. Richie wasn't sure what happened, but we all knew one thing. Walter never moved away. He worked for his father even without a college degree. Richie thinks that Walter never actually stopped tormenting the kid, but he just wasn't sure. Now I know none of the guys from back then maintained a friendship with Walter. Does that mean we grew up? Does that mean we all knew that it was wrong? The thing is, I don't think any of them, not even Richie, are living with the guilt. I don't mean to make this all about me, but there have been times where I just can't sleep. Could I have stopped this prank from going any further? And how much of it truly does fall directly on my shoulders? Thanks for watching our story. Come back to us again. It's interesting. Be sure to write in the comments what else you want to see here. And if you don't mind, please like it here.